We're taking an early look at the Arizona Cardinals, who are next on the New York Giants schedule. Former NFL tight end and host of BLEAV Cardinals podcast, Ed Smith, joins me to lay down the preview that's coming your way next on the Locked On Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Today's episode of the Locked On Giants podcast is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself when you purchase a Jace case, a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treats over 50 infections. Get yours today at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Hello, New York Giant fans, and welcome to another edition of the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. You got Patricia Traina here, and it is our Wednesday show, and I'm joined on today's program by Ed Smith. Ed Smith is a former NFL tight end. He is the host of the BLEAV Arizona Cardinals podcast, and he is here so as we turn the page off of Sunday night's ugly Giants loss to the Dallas Cowboys, and we turn ahead to look at the Arizona Cardinals. And Ed's got a lot of great insight. We've had him on the show before. He's one of my favorite people to come on the show when we get the opportunity. So Ed, thank you so much for coming on with me.
My pleasure, Patricia, and always good to be on with you.
All right, Ed, we got a lot to talk about. The Arizona Cardinals up next on the New York Giants docket. The Cardinals coming off of a interesting game week 1 against the Commanders. New coaching staff, new everything basically. Give us a little overview, what you saw from the Cardinals that really jumped out at you as far as, the newness. And that includes obviously a new quarterback with Kyler Murray not yet ready.
Patricia, yeah, the everything is so, like, as you mentioned, new out here. We've got new GM, new coach on the field, a host of new players. Most of them we can't even recognize out here because of the overhaul on the roster. Last week's game was it was actually a surprise for me. I was actually surprised that they came out and kept the game as close as they did. We got a quarterback who's been here in the organization for less than 2 weeks in Joshua Dobbs. You got a rookie backing him up after they let Colt McCoy go. Not much as far as expectations here, but to keep that game as close as they did and actually have a lead in the fourth quarter shocked me a little bit. I don't know if this was our first and only opportunity to maybe steal a win, because there's not much, I guess, optimism as far as the over-under. I think we're at 3.5 games as far as wins this year. That might have been our best shot early, as we know the way everybody's handling their preseason nowadays, Patricia. The first month of the season, for me, everybody's kind of going through training camp, and it's going to look like preseason football. So if the Cardinals are going to get some early wins, this might be the opportunity as other teams find their traction. We all saw what happened to, your Giants this past Sunday. They're going to be looking for a little get back and get on that right track. And the Cardinals coming up might be the ideal time for, to make that transition from last week to a much better performance moving ahead.
And I want to ask you about the Cardinals defense. They managed to sack Washington's quarterback 6 times, which, obviously you got Jonathan Gannon coming over from Philadelphia. How much, I'm sure you've seen Philadelphia's defense in the past, but how much do you see similarities with what they're doing, down in Arizona versus what they did in Philadelphia?
Well, the biggest difference, Patricia, is we're going to be attempting to do it without the talent of a Philadelphia defense. I think more than anything, what we saw last week with the Cardinals getting those 6 sacks, I think that was more to say about the Washington Commanders' lack of performance on their offensive line. I don't necessarily think, there's much to, we don't have what you call a featured rusher. and edge or anybody, interior or edge. So more than anything, I think it was more. I can attribute that more to the offensive line, which nowadays are always behind the defenses early in the season. But our that was more of an aberration, I think, in terms of just preparedness by the Commanders' offensive line. I don't think you guys are up against what we call steel curtain or anything like that, or would have any real big concerns in week 2 with, we got to identify these particular matchups. We've gotten rid of the best talent we've had here, and it'll be, for me, if the Giants don't come out and protect better and have better results, that would be a big red flag for me moving forward for you guys.
Yeah, for sure. The Giants offensive line, not very good against the Dallas front, but Dallas did a lot of stunts and fancy stuff, exotic blitzes, you name it, they threw it at that line. And the right side of the Giants offensive line, in particular, Mark Lewinsky and tackle Evan Neal, big time problem. I'm just wondering if maybe going forward, the Giants might have a 6th guy stay in to help with some of the blocking. But, Ed, let me ask you this as a former tight end. I want to talk about Darren Waller and what he can potentially do for this Giants offense. What makes Waller so difficult, you think, to defend against?
Physically, he's just a mismatch for anybody. When you look at some of the safeties and linebackers that'll be covering him, he's oversized for the safeties, so they have a hard time. He can body them up. And then athletically against more the bigger cover linebackers, he's quicker than most of those guys. So he's got a great mix of talent. The biggest problem for him, Patricia, over the years has been keeping him healthy. It seems like every year, obviously his past years in Las Vegas with the Raiders, he's always a hamstring away from missing 3 or 4 games. He went in week 1, questionable with a hamstring. He was able to get out there and play. Obviously not really effective because of the blowout loss. But if you can keep him healthy, he's a beast in terms of matchup, like I said, for those reasons, because he's too big for the secondary guys and too quick for the linebackers trying to cover him. So, every week you just have to cross your fingers that he gets through the week healthy and you don't hear anything early in the week as far as something else being tweaked. But, they can incorporate him into that offense. He's going to be a beautiful safety blanket for Daniel Jones moving forward. You combine that with the running game of Saquon, the ability to, get Darren up the middle of the formations out there in coverage. I say you're going to have a lot of success with him.
Hey, Giant fans, our partner at eBay Motors has teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week, all season long. Whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. And if you're looking to park an elite running back in your fantasy football garage after the top half dozen options at the position have been taken off the lot, expect Lions rookie Jahmyr Gibbs to be a roaring engine as he takes the lead role in an overhauled backfield. The real first-round pick is a steal as an RB2, possessing the talent and pedigree to deliver big, immediate results in a loaded offense. And Giant fans, while Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football helps you win your fantasy championship, know that eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure that your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay's guaranteed fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. So keep your ride or die alive at ebay.com/motors. eBay's guaranteed fit is only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. You've got me, Patricia Traina, and special guest Ed Smith, former NFL tight end, played with the Eagles. He is now the host of BLEAV in the Arizona Cardinals podcast over on the BLEAV network, and always glad to have him on the program. He's been on with me before. Love talking with this gentleman. And Ed, I want to talk a little bit more about the Giants offensive line. I know you watched some of that game on Sunday night, and like, so many other lucky people, you were able to turn it off after so much. I mean, I unfortunately had to watch that whole slop, but
Yeah.
when you look at that offensive line, I mean, the right side struggled. I think we can both agree that's where a lot of the problems were. But what can they do, do you think, to maybe stop the bleeding there? Is it just a matter of, putting extra help over there, getting more chips, replacing somebody? I mean, what's there to be done, do you think?
Well, for all offensive lines across the board, Patricia, I think the biggest thing for them is time to gel. And when I say that, I'm talking about, we've decreased the amount of hitting that can be done during preseason, during the OTAs. You get into training camp and, a lot of the starting units aren't playing together, if at all, during training, during preseason. And then you jump into the regular season and everything ramps up really quickly. I mean, it's the difference between preseason football and once you jump into the regular season, it's like it's dialed up so much quicker. And what's going on with these offensive lines, because they haven't had a chance to do much work together, hit together. And I always remind people, Patricia, the offensive line is the only unit on a football team that you don't see, replacements coming in and out. You can have mass guys coming in on the defensive line. Obviously, you got different wide receiver packages. You got DBs and quarterbacks that interact for nickel and dime packages. The offensive line is the only unit that is there, and you hope for, if you play 60, 70 snaps, you want those guys all together out there for 60 or 70 snaps. And the lack of, I guess, opportunity for these guys to work together, go through the fast paces, it's going to be seen early in the season, because like that unit it's got to be so cohesive, and it's almost like a ballet. These guys got to be moving together in sync, passing blocks off, combination blocks to next levels, et cetera, et cetera. And because they don't really have that opportunity, it's going to take them a while, meaning first portion of the season, before it starts to look good. So with that, and in the meantime, you brought up some great points. You can chip more, leave your tight ends in the block more, but you're taking routes out of the tree if you're doing that. So hopefully those guys get up to speed quicker. But in the meantime, if you have to protect them a little bit, keep it back in, keep a tight end in for a quick chip, those are the things that you do to assist.
When you look at this Giants Cardinals matchup, speaking early on, because obviously we have, as we record this, we're recording this on Tuesday. The practice week hasn't started, so we don't have updates on injury reports and whatnot. But where do you see the Giants having an advantage, and where do you see the Cardinals having an advantage?
I don't necessarily see the Cardinals having an advantage anywhere for the most part, because I mentioned earlier, we don't have a great deal of talent here, and that's on purpose. They stripped this roster down on all sides of the ball, I should say. So we're running out there primarily with second-tier guys. We do have a Zaven Collins up front. We do have a Budda Baker on the backside of the defense. But I always say, if your safety is the star of your the show for your defensive team, that means he's making a lot of tackles deep off into the secondary, and that's not a good thing. Zaven Collins, he's going to learn his way as far as being a guy up front, maybe a little edge rusher, but they got him as a little bit of a jack of all trades. We'll see how they utilize him. For me, the advantage goes if you have Saquon Barkley on your roster, and if you can get that offensive line to get at least a little push, get Saquon into the second tier of that defense where he can make some moves, get to the deeper portion of it, you guys are going to have a lot of success. And we all know that the great or good passing games stem, especially when you're dealing with a quarterback like a Daniel Jones, stem off that play action. So if you can get your run game going, get us to have to commit more to the front, 8 men in the box, et cetera, or if we have to blitz because we're not getting to Daniel Jones, you give him time with our secondary or lack of secondary, you guys will be able to pick us apart, I think. And that's where it's all going to come down to. You guys can come in here and establish a run game, get us off our, on our heels, and then go from there. It opens up so much on your playbook. the offensive line just has to be respectable in this situation. You don't have to go out and be like the old Dallas Cowboys offensive line, thing like that. If you can just be respectable, get your run game going, I think everything will stem off of that.
What about defensively for the Giants? Where do they maybe have the upper hand against the Cardinals?
Upper hand comes with us having a quarterback who's making his fourth start, only has been here in the organization. Now it'll be 3 weeks with an offensive line that is dealing with the same things that every other offensive line is dealing with, plus lack of talent here, if you ask me. If you guys can get any type of pressure, and the other thing is, Patricia, the game plan that the Cardinals had last week, you could tell it was as safe and just basic a game plan as you can have because of Dobbs only being here a couple weeks, as I mentioned. But they're not really sure about him, and he's not really sure about this offense. So everything's going to be in front. I think he completed so many odd passes for 130 some odd yards, whatever it was. If you're not going down the field and making us respect the fact that you can dump 7, 8, 9 in the box to stop our run game, there's not going to be much success. Now, obviously it'll be another week in the offense for him. That's not saying much, but as he gets more comfortable down the road, they might open up things a little bit. But right now it's going to be as conservative as you can imagine. And if you can stop those predictable first and second down runs, put us in big passing situations, and then unleash your dogs on us, we're going to have a whole lot of trouble here in Arizona.
Hey, Giant fans, you never know when the unexpected is going to pop up, causing you or a loved one to fall ill. But now you don't need to be caught unprepared when you have Jace Medical. This doctor-created, doctor-recommended services Jace case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use. All it takes to get a Jace case is to fill out a simple online form and, in some cases, jump on a quick call with one of their board-certified physicians. You'll then get prescriptions and life-saving medication delivered straight to your door. Jace handles everything from online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. And now you can save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical. Plus, get an additional $20 off by using the promo code Locked On at checkout at jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com. Hey, Giant fans, if you're looking for a fun and different way to play fantasy football this season, you need to check out Prize Picks. Just pick 2 or more players, predict their stats, and sit back and see how they perform. It takes less than 60 seconds to make an entry, and best of all, you can turn a few bucks into some nice cash with the right projections. Prize Picks is the #1 daily fantasy sports app, known for its quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and wide selection of player and stat types. And they offer weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts, like Taco Tuesday, when each Tuesday Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% off to provide even more value. So what are you waiting for? Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL and use the promo code LockedOnNFL for a first deposit match up to $100. That's prizepicks.com/LockedOnNFL, and that promo code is LockedOnNFL for your first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the Locked On Giants podcast. Patricia Traina here with you, P-Train, joined by Ed Smith, host of BLEAV in Arizona Cardinals podcast, former NFL tight end. Ed, let's talk about the Cardinals rushing game, because I think that is probably the strength of this team, if I'm not mistaken, just from the outside looking in. The Cardinals on Sunday rushed for 96 yards, 25 carries, about 3.8 per carry. The leader, John Connor, who went 14 of 62, along of 12. I mean, has that been basically enough to sustain this Cardinals offense, rather, or is that just, kind of smoke and mirrors? And how do you see them matching up against the Giants' run defense, which last year was a bit of a problem?
It's my hope, Patricia, that they stay consistent with the run game. And in order to stay with the run game, a lot of times it depends on score, different things like that. If we can stay in these games and not fall behind and be consistent with it. One of the things I did like about the attack that they had, as conservative as it was with the passing game, they didn't abandon the running game. We did run it 25 times. I think Joshua was like 20 for 30 as far as throwing the ball, but not for a lot of yardage. So, my thing is come out, establish it, try to bleed that clock as much as you can, take what you can off of Joshua Dobbs' shoulders, because as you get into those more predictable passing downs, what's going to happen is the Giants are going to be able to put the ears back and come after him and get him. And the combination of our offensive line not being as stout as they should be, still trying to figure things out, that results in sacks, that results in turnovers. One of the other things I'll bring up is that as conservative as the game plan was, it worked to a certain degree because we had as far as the passing game, no interceptions. Now, Dobbs did put on the ground a couple times in the pocket, being pressured, but there were no touchdowns thrown, no interceptions. So as conservative as everything was, he did at least protect the ball. What happens, though, is you put pressure on the quarterback, especially a young guy who's not really in tune, just because of experience, and this offense, combined, that's when you get the bad picks and turnovers and things of that nature. So the running game, just in my opinion, rely on it. Try to use it as much as possible. Will be balanced with the offense. Take as much pressure off of Dobbs as you can, and maybe we can just grind this one out and keep it close and get a victory. If we do anything stupid like start turning the ball over or fall behind big, and then you force him to have to throw the ball, that's when the blowouts happen.
Ed, what can you tell us about the coaching aspect, the operation, like the play calling, the philosophies, the sequences, the decisions being made? I mean, I know it's early, the staff is still kind of gelling as it is, but what was your takeaways and what are your concerns about what you saw from week one?
Well, they're figuring it out. It's a young staff, meaning first time through with Gannon and Petzen, our offensive coordinator. They're all been elevated to those next steps or next levels as far as, what they're doing now. I was encouraged that it didn't look like a dumpster fire, Patricia, meaning we saw what happened last year over in Denver with not getting plays in on time, having to burn timeouts in situations that didn't even call for it because it was just so much chaos going on over on the sideline. I didn't see that. They managed, and they'll continue to learn week by week and get more comfortable in what they're doing. The one thing that I did see that was a negative was we started off so conservative, obviously, because we had a quarterback who'd only been there for a couple weeks, not what you would call the greatest skilled quarterback in the world either. So they tried to keep it as basic as possible. Might not have realized later in the game we actually had a chance to win that game if they would have opened it up and been a little more aggressive. Nobody expected, in my opinion, I didn't expect them to be in that game, have a lead in the fourth quarter. That might even caught them by surprise. Whereas when you get to that position, a couple of key, let's take shots down the field, convert some different things. Maybe we get an additional score, put more pressure on Washington. What we did, we just maintained that conservative, almost scared approach, which allowed Washington to regain their footage, eventually get the lead, and then we didn't have enough time and power to come back. So, for me, it's just a matter of, hey, at this point in time, we all know the Cardinals are not a Super Bowl bound team. So in my opinion, hey, what do we have to lose? Let's just we should be one of those teams that comes out and week to week, you have no idea what we might throw at you. A fake punt, we might go for it on fourth down. But right now it looks like they're taking the real, just easy approach. Let's be conservative. I'd like to see them get off of that a little more.
Okay. And then, Ed, what do you think the X factor is in this game for either side?
The X factor for me is the start of the game. What happened to you guys this past week, you got punched in the mouth with the blocked field goal, and everything went downhill from there. If that doesn't happen, if they scored at 3 points and then, Dallas gets the ball, and we might have never seen that landslide. So if you guys can avoid that, come in knowing you're playing a team that not uber talented, but if we come in with our game plan, Saquon Barkley, get Danny Dimes some easy completions early, get on top of these Cardinals, and then stay on top of them. Well, I think what Washington did last week, they started out and gave the Cardinals a little bit of confidence, and next we were in that game throughout. It's just as the Cowboys did you guys, punch you in the mouth, get on top of you, and then from there it's a landslide. I think that's possible depending on how the Giants come in here to play because, no offense to our Cardinals, we're lacking in talent. We got rookie coaches all over the place. Only a 4-point spread, which surprises me a little bit. Patricia, they don't have a lot of confidence in the Giants. So I figured that would at least be closer to somewhere near, even though it's a road game, 8 or 9 or something like that. But the fact that they only think giving you Giants the 4 points, they might know something that we don't know. But, if they get off to a good start, the key will be to stay on top of us. If you guys, I will say this moving forward, whichever team loses to the Cardinals to start the season out, shame on you. Because, we don't have a lot here. I'm not expecting a lot. They will get better as the year moves on, but, you're supposed to win these type of games if you're the Giants.
Yeah, for sure. All right, and I want to ask you about Zach Ertz because he had some injury issues in the past. He was the leading receiver this past week. The Giants and tight ends, they've had problems covering tight ends. What have you seen from Zach Ertz? Does he look like the Zach Ertz of old? And where, as far as the matchup with the Giants, who do you think has the edge there?
Well, Zach is coming off another injury with the knee. So those are tricky, especially for tight ends because you're asked to do so much. I assumed, and you saw they're just rolling him back out there. I don't know if he's going to be himself like the old Zach Ertz until we get, probably I'd say about 6-7 games into the season. And then the other thing you have to factor in, Patricia, is much talent as we might have at a position or two, meaning we got this great veteran tight end. But if you got a young, inexperienced quarterback who's trying to get him the ball, that makes it that much tougher. So our passing, anything as far as our passing game is going to be kind of muted because we're dealing with, a Joshua Dobbs at the position. If we had a Colt McCoy here, wily veteran who knows how to use his tight end, get in and out of certain calls and different things, recognizing coverages, recognizing the weakness of a defense, where to go. Right now, Josh he's literally learning on the fly, and that's going to downgrade all of your assets, including your tight end. There'll be maybe a breakout tour play here, but as far as like an overall game plan and influence on the game, it's hard to say when you're dealing with this quarterback issue. So, hopefully they'll utilize Zach and know that he can be this young quarterback's best friend. But, with everything that you put into your equation, it's just hard to see a whole lot of success at any point in time.
For the Giants, it has to be a bounce back game because, no disrespect to the Cardinals, but if they lose to the Cardinals and start out 0-2, that's not going to be very good, especially, given everything you've outlined here. The Giants, I always go back to 2007 when they started out 0-2 and they went on to win the Super Bowl. But, this isn't 2007, as I am frequently reminded by my listeners. But Ed, appreciate your insight as always. It's always great to see you on the podcast. When the Cardinals come up on the schedule, tell everybody where they can find you besides on the BLEAV in Arizona podcasts, Cardinals podcast, excuse me.
First off, it is always great to be on with you, Patricia. I look forward to it when I see the schedule coming up, and I appreciate you having me on. My local show, the Easy Sports Talk show, went national a few weeks ago. So now we're in 35 states, 98 markets across the country on the Sports Map Radio platform. So the Easy Sports Talk show every Saturday from 1 to 3 noon across the Sports Map platform. We also do the BLEAV in Cardinals podcast. We also do the Easy Sports Talk podcast. If you go to Easy, and that's E and the Z, sportstalk.com, you can see all the things we're doing, everything we lay out. And as I said, always great to be on with you, Patricia. And you keep up the great work. I love what you do.
Well, thank you so much, my friend. And again, and it was a pleasure having you on. So thank you. Thank you, Giant fans, my first timers, my everydayers, my subtexters, and everybody in between. You guys are awesome. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day, or if you watch on YouTube, your first watch of the day. For Ed Smith, I'm Patricia Traina. Coming up tomorrow on the Locked On Giants podcast, we have Crossover Thursday with Alex Clancy, host of Locked On Cardinals. You won't want to miss it. Have a good one, everybody, and we'll see you soon.